I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Ruffian Stop.
Tune into the
Don't Tap
podcast.
Don't Tap
podcast.
John Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's why the rankings are bullshit.
from Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
But this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high-level guys.
So, like, the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go. Oh, no, we're good. See, he's a pro.
Welcome to another edition of the Don't Tap podcast. We are here with none other than your capper's favorite capper, Hub Sports Radio Zone, Billy Briz. Billy Briz, welcome to the show. For Nick and I, it's amazing to have you on and be able to give your insight, especially from that betting edge. That's something that we're looking to, gain a little bit more insight into.
What up, boys? I appreciate the invite, man. Longtime viewer of the podcast, man. We got to get back to some money. Aaron Jeffrey let us down last week, so time is of the essence. Easter Sunday for the folks. We got to put some money in their pockets.
And a happy retirement to John Sullivan. As we move on, we look at UFC 287, Pereira versus Adesanya, and really a big reason why we're pretty excited to have you on the show is this sort of started as a breakdown podcast. We did angles and sort of looked at tape and everything, but it wasn't as much sort of the betting side of things, and it became that more and more and more as obviously betting became so prevalent everywhere. Until it was taken away from us by James Krause for a little while, but it's back in Ontario and Canada, so we're good to go. But we love to be able to get your insight into some lines and feel free, even if we're on a prop or whatever else, and be like, look, here's why this one maybe isn't what we want to look at, or here's why, that's a perfect one. Let's ride with that. So we definitely want your insight today, and we will start off with the rematch of rematches in Pereira and Adesanya, the main event. This is a very interesting fight, with Adesanya coming in 23-2, Pereira coming in 7-1. Right now at Betway, you can get Adesanya for -125 favorites, and Alex Pereira can be had as a dog for +123 at Cool Bets. And this is one that I'm going to chime in a little bit on. And this really is a rematch of really an opportunity in windows. And really that's what Pereira is going to be searching for. And the notes that I wrote down when watching the last fight, I was so tuned into that fight. And the reason being, I was so scared for that Pereira hook. Like, we were waiting for that to come, and you're so tuned into watching what Adesanya is going to do to stay away from it. And he overloads your system, much like Sandhagen did in his last fight. He's throwing feints at you. He's rolling his hips. He's throwing feints from low, high. He's switching his stance. He's changing his direction. He's faking the takedown. He's actually shooting a takedown. He's constantly overloading your system. And with a guy like Pereira, who already has lower volume, he only has a certain amount of windows to land that big shot. And what Adesanya is trying to do is take those windows away as much as possible and win a decision. That's really what he's trying to do. Unfortunately, Pereira just finds that window eventually. That window's there for him usually later in a fight. Those hooks are mean. And the reason why he's able to actually land, he doesn't throw from a normal stance. He doesn't throw his punches back from almost like I call it an archery stance, where you're pulling back on that punch a little bit. He actually throws them straight up here he's squared off because he has so much power. He's able to throw shots square. So you can't really gauge those as well. So it's definitely an interesting matchup. It's going to be a chess match. I think Adesanya really has to lean on this wrestling heavy early. It needs to happen. It needs to be a focus. And whether it works on Pereira, I don't know. So I'm going to pass this one off. We will start off with the man, Billy Briz. What's your take on this one? Pereira, Adesanya. I'm back and forth on this one. Does Adesanya actually do it and pull out the decision, or does he get caught again?
Yeah, this fight had me going back and forth too. I'm actually in Danbury, Connecticut. That's where I've been staying at, home of Glover's Gym. Actually had lunch with Alex Pereira's lawyer the other day, and I exactly had to get to his idea about what he thought about the fight, and I agree with him 1,000%. I mean, Alex Pereira's cutting a lot of weight to come down the middleweight, man, and sometimes you get fat and happy in life, and sometimes some of those fights start turning into money fights. I mean, he took a Glory kickboxing title fight before he signed to the UFC. I mean, I can't imagine how much money he's made. He went from driving into a Volkswagen to driving into a BMW with a beautiful lady. I mean, he's reached the heights of all heights for Alex Pereira. I feel like Israel Adesanya is coming into this fight a little bit motivated. We know Israel Adesanya might have the best fight IQ in all of MMA. I think he has a lot of ways to get this fight a W in his favor. I think that line at minus 150 is very generous. But if you're a little bit scared about that, I can honestly see the under 4.5 hitting, like you were touching on. I feel like the only way Alex Pereira wins this fight is by knockout or submission off of his back from an Israel Adesanya takedown. I could see Israel Adesanya getting a takedown using the grappling in the third and fourth rounds, which could make Alex Pereira a little bit tired. The lawyer told me that he hasn't been practicing on the ground like that. It's been more of striking and going to Thailand and doing that type of stuff. So I feel like Alex, this is the last time that we see him fight at middleweight. I think there's bigger fights for him in the future at light heavyweight and heavyweight. I think he's looking for the Jamal Hill money day, payday fight. He's looking for the Yuri Prochazka money fight. He's looking for the John Jones fight. Alex Pereira has a lot of things that he can do with the rest of his career. I feel like Israel Adesanya, we know what he wants to do. He wants to be the middleweight champion again.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah, I'm like everybody else on this one, man. Like you kind of go back and forth on it. The thing with Israel Adesanya is he kind of fought the perfect fight in the last one and still got clipped. And I feel like that's where I'm hesitant to pull the trigger on it. I agree with what Billy said. I think Pereira, he even talked about heavyweight and, what he can do up there and everything like that. So it's not like he wants to stick around in this division. From a betting perspective on this fight, I think I'm personally going to stay away from it just because it's kind of like what we saw with Usman, right? Like you kind of want to see where they're at and where they're coming back with. I think that Izzy should win this fight. I think he should regain his title. And the only play that I've looked at on this fight is knockout only prop at minus 160 on DraftKings. Because I think, as you guys both pointed out, that if Alex Pereira wins, it's going to be by finish. So, and then if Izzy wins a decision, you get your money back at the end of the day. So that's the only real prop I've looked at this one.
The one number I don't have in front of me, but I know it is a stark number, is the immediate rematch. It doesn't play well for the former champion. So that is the only thing that's sort of like, that's where these storylines play off with narratives and really how it's going to play out. But I mean, Pereira finding that chin has been the consistent storyline, right? That's the finality, I think. So
yeah, I think it's 3-12. I think it's 3-12 for champions regaining the title. So it's not a very favorable number.
It's in that last one, man. My question for you guys is, since we know Israel Adesanya is going to wrestle a little bit more than what the odds makers are expecting, do you think there's value in any of these submission props for any of these fighters? I mean, fight to end by submissions plus 950. People call that crazy, but I mean, I think if Alex Pereira, there's two ways Alex Pereira finishes this fight. Either by knocking Israel Adesanya like he did last time, or throwing up a submission off of his back because he doesn't get up from off the takedowns. So do you think Israel Adesanya get a rear naked choke? I mean,
that's what I was, man. I was the same way I was thinking Holly Holm, rear naked choke, and it actually almost happened. I could see, like, he lands a couple of shots up top after taking him down in the wrestling situation. Although Pereira's better on the ground in the jiu-jitsu, the black belt becomes a blue belt real quick with an elbow, turns, gives up his back. A lot of guys can sink a rear naked choke. It doesn't take too much to sink that. So, I can see it. Ends in submission. That's an interesting one. That's like a Lambo type play. I like that one.
Yeah, plus 950 on FanDuel. I mean, if you're playing this fight, I mean, it's worth a couple sprinkles. I mean, we're going to be watching a fight at 1 o'clock in the morning going into Easter Sunday. How do you not throw some plus monies out there? Because I'm a little bit scared of these round props. I don't see this fight going to the championship rounds. I mean, if you rewatch that fight, I feel like Israel Adesanya, let that fight have a little bit more time at the end of the first round. He could have probably finished Alex Pereira. And the same exact case scenario for Alex Pereira, I felt like that was an early stoppage.
What if fight doesn't start round 4? Because I think that is also one narrative, too, that Adesanya comes out a little more aggressive, doesn't wait, and doesn't try to out-chess match and just goes for it. That's
I'll give you a better price tag. Fight doesn't start round 5, plus 102.
I like that. I think that's going to have to be a podcast play. I like that one for sure. All right, let's move on to the next fight on the card. We have Gilbert Burns, 21-5-0, coming up against Jorge Masvidal, 35-16-0. Right now, the favorite, one of the heaviest favorites on the card. We can have Gilbert Burns at minus 450 at Sports Interaction, and Jorge Masvidal plus 400 at Cool Bets. And I heard the retirement word. Every time you hear that word, whether it's like I'm thinking about it a couple fights from now, if it's in your head and you got the money and you've already on a losing streak and you really, I'll be honest, I saw something today where he hasn't beat a welterweight since like, what is it, 2016? I don't even know what it was. He hasn't beat a welterweight that anybody he's beaten isn't in the UFC right now. Anybody he's beaten in the past like 5 years. So Jorge Masvidal sort of at this point is just faded. It's just his name value that's there. We know what Gilbert Burns is going to do. Gilbert Burns is going to be able to actually press him up against the cage, either finish him on the feet there or take him down and potentially submit him. The line's obviously too wide to bet this straight up, but it is a good parlay piece. I mean, Jorge Masvidal may be a puncher's chance in that situation. That's about it. But I will let you take this one away, Nick. What do you think? Jorge Masvidal has a chance, or does Gilbert Burns? Do we go that route with props, Gilbert Burns, or we just parlay him up in a parlay for the week and call it a day?
Well, I definitely think the line is a little bit wide. Like, I think if you look at Jorge Masvidal, although he hasn't been winning fights, in his fights against Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman, he did defend about 50% of the takedowns or more that were sent his way. And I kind of credit those fighters as being better wrestlers than Gilbert Burns. I think people are putting a little bit too much stock in what he did to Neil Magny, given Neil Magny's age and where he's at in his career and stuff like that. It was definitely a step down in competition. I don't think Masvidal wins this fight, don't get me wrong, but I think you can do, as you said, like, he's a good parlay piece. This is towards the end of the card, and if this is the last ticket you have, then you can attack this from a live betting perspective too. Because if you see that Gilbert Burns isn't landing those takedowns and Masvidal is starting to, get himself away from the cage and start to land the shots, at plus 490, like, that line isn't going to drastically drop, right? So you can definitely jump in on Masvidal if you see the tide kind of starting to turn from that. But as you said, minus 490 is not really playable from a money line perspective unless you do parlay it.
And mentioning Masvidal's takedown defense, right now he's sitting with a 74% takedown defense. And if it stays on the feet, then there's two guys that can slang dynamite.
Then it's a pick 'em.
Interesting take. Billy?
Yeah, I think I got a different take than everybody else on this fight. I think Street Jesus could resurrect himself. I mean, if you kind of like match these two fighters up, I think there's a huge discrepancy between the boxing between these two fighters. I think Jorge Masvidal could piece the shit out of Gilbert Burns if this was just a striking fight. And I don't think Gilbert Burns is the type of wrestler that he's faced of recent of Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman. Those guys are pure American folk style wrestlers that are going to press you up against the cage, go for a single leg, double leg, chain wrestle you for a whole entire 25 minutes. That's not Gilbert Burns' type of game, man. He's more of a jiu-jitsu type of guy. Maybe he'll take down to the ground, but he's more of a type of guy that will take a couple chances, and those chances might be the chances that get Jorge Masvidal in this fight. I know there's a retirement word hovering around Jorge Masvidal's name for this fight week, which kind of throws a huge red flag. I mean, the Game Bread promotion, I mean, that's taken off, man. I mean, you guys got guys in the UFC like Bo Nickel now that came out of that promotion. I mean, we saw that card last week, Roy Jones Jr. versus Anthony Pettis. Masvidal's making some bread, and it's not in the UFC right now. So I could definitely understand the hesitancy for Jorge Masvidal here, but we're getting Jorge Masvidal in his backyard. I think motivation is going to be 10 out of 10. But also, this is Gilbert Burns' backyard. He trains down there in Florida too, but I think the fans are going to be happy when that Miami Will Smith comes on and Jorge Masvidal walks down the aisle, man. He's going to forget all the retirement words. Things I like in this fight, I mean, can Street Jesus stay in here for 15 minutes? I definitely think he has the capability to. I mean, this is the same as that guy that took a fight on short notice and flew halfway across the country from Las Vegas to Abu Dhabi against Kamaru Usman when he had two knees, and he went 25 minutes, and he had a horrible weight cut. I mean, I definitely think Jorge Masvidal is a live dog in this spot. But I think the best bet on this fight, you might have to grab your juice box for this one. I like the over 1.5 rounds on Betway at minus 200. I definitely think this goes over 1.5 rounds, and I definitely think Jorge Masvidal is live enough to get a knockout here. If you're telling me Jorge career in Miami with some type of crazy finish over Gilbert Burns, would I be shocked? No, man. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen in Miami. And for the narrative street, the UFC just partnered up with the WWE. We're about to see a crazy fucking narrative scripts coming out this year, man.
I like the take. It's a hot take, and honestly, man, if it stays on the feet, like it was sort of set up there, it does become a pick 'em, and then you're looking the way you broke that down. Masvidal does have a very solid chance that way. So
I think the biggest question for Jorge Masvidal is how good is this takedown defense really? Because, I mean, it will definitely be tested in this one. It will only take
100%.
probably Gilbert Burns 2 or 3 takedowns to probably get a submission. But, I mean, Masvidal has good submission defense early on in his regional scene career before he went on his Street Jesus run. Before he did that reality TV show thing, he was getting a lot of finishes by submissions and stuff like that. I mean, Masvidal has a sneaky jiu-jitsu game himself. I really don't – I think this is the widest – I don't understand this line at all. I would bet Gilbert Burns if it was minus 275 or minus 300, but minus 500 on Gilbert Burns and going up. I think this line closes at like minus 600, minus 650. And if that's the case, I guess I'm walking to the ticket with the Jorge Masvidal and Adesanya parlay and hoping for the best, right?
Well, Nick's saying if it stays on the feet, it's a pick 'em, and then you're lining it up that way. And then as the line gets wider and wider, this might be a play. All right, next fight on the card, we have a striker's delight. I'm excited for this one. We got Rob Font, 19-6-0. The dog coming in plus 155 at Caesars. Adrian Yanez, 16-3-0 favorite, minus 167 best bet can be had at Cool Bet. Man, this is going to be a fun one to watch. I want to look at some of the striking props on this one to see the over and unders on that, because that's going to be interesting. I think this stays on the feet. I think this could go to decision. And it's just going to be a striker's delight. We're going to watch a fun boxing match. I will let you take this one away, Billy, first. Rob Font, Adrian Yanez. Who edges this one?
Are we starting to see the decline in Rob Font? I mean, he just hasn't looked the same. I mean, I know he's only the age of 35, which isn't too old for bantamweight. But, I mean, against Chito Vera, man, I mean, it looked like volume-wise, game plan-wise, he executed his game plan, and he still ended up losing the fight. And it feels like the same exact scenario for the Aldo fight before, and he lost both of those fights by unanimous decision. I feel like Adrian Yanez could be one of those type of guys, though, that I end up falling in love with a little bit too early. I mean, he hasn't lost for me yet. I mean, how do you not like the guy? I mean, he's won on Dana White Contender Series, undefeated so far in the UFC. And we're only getting minus 175 of a price tag for him. I mean, it's hard not for me not to bet Adrian Yanez this week, but it is one of those type of scenarios, though, where we start falling in love with these guys in the UFC, and then they start getting that step up in competition, and then they don't look like the same guy that I once remember. I started getting Alexander Romanov deja vu when I talk about scenarios like this. One guy that I feel like it's one of those type of scenarios. Yanez is taking that step up in competition. I think this is the right step up in competition. I think he wins this fight. I think the best bet on this fight would probably be Adrian Yanez by decision. I think Rob Font's tough enough to stay the 15 minutes, but I'm not going to get cute on this one. I like Adrian Yanez a lot, but on the money line, I'm thinking about just playing that straight for the main card and let that be like the real anchor for the weekend. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this fight could play in the judges' eyes maybe a little bit closer than it actually is, just from Yanez's style with his boxing and how he slips, sort of like Bobby Green. It looks like he's getting hit at times, but he's slipping the punch completely. So sometimes that plays into effect, depending if you have a judge out there that's not really boxing savvy or as boxing savvy. But yeah, no, I'm heavy on Yanez, or not heavy on Yanez, but I think Yanez does win this one. But it's definitely a step up in competition. It's a good show, like it's a show me spot for him in the sense that this is the level. Like once he's hit this level, we'll know he's really that real deal or not. So you're definitely right on that one. Nick, what's your take?
Yeah, I'm on now. Yanez pretty high in this one as well. I think the best way to play this is the over 2.5 is only minus 125. I agree with what Billy said. I see this going 15 minutes. If you look at the way that Rob Font got dropped against Aldo and Vera and still didn't get finished, I think it's kind of a leap to say that, that he's on the same level as guys like Tony Kelly that are no longer in the UFC. And you saw in like the Randy Costa fight where he got pieced up real bad in the first round. So depending on how Rob Font comes out, if he comes out throwing the same amount of volume and Yanez kind of struggles to keep up with him, then you could be on the wrong side of a bad decision. So I think the over 2.5 minus 125 is my favorite look on this one. And from a money line perspective, I do pick Yanez as well.
I didn't even notice the props for this fight, but I think Nick just hit the nail on the coffin. I mean, over 2.5 minus 120 is a better price tag than Adrian Yanez straight up. And I definitely see this fight. These are two tough warriors. I mean, we know Font has 5-round fight experience, and we know Adrian Yanez is a slow starter. I mean, that would be the only hesitancy of betting him at minus 175. I mean, he started off very slow against Davey Grant and in some other fights I remember. But I definitely am. Man, I think the over 2.5, that's the sweet spot. Minus 120.
Like it.
All right, podcast play. I like it. Next fight on the card, we have Kevin Holland, 23-9-0, minus 245 best bets at DraftKings. Santiago Ponzinibbio, 29-6-0, plus 225 at Coolbet. And the one thing that strikes me with this fight is both these guys have such similar records. And even the strength of schedule is pretty similar as far as the level of fights that these guys had. But the one thing about Ponzinibbio is he's been around since 2013. And I'm just wondering, he's been in so many wars, stretched over a period of time, that what goes into that is also long training camps, sparring and the work that he's done. It sort of scares me if it's a retirement fight for him, to be honest. I think this might actually be a retirement fight for him. But that being said, I mean, Kevin Holland and what he did in his last fight, in the fight IQ he showed, is staying on the feet against Wonder Boy just made no sense to me. I don't think he's going to do that again. I don't think he's going to play the same game. This one's really more of a stay off for me because I know Nick's potentially on the side of the dog, but I'm going to stay away from this one. I will let you take it away, Mr. Billy Briz. What's your take on this? Ponzinibbio, Holland. Does Holland?
This is a very, very tough fight. I feel like the type of fighter you want to fade Kevin Holland with is the type of person that's going to push the grappling and go in there and go get takedown. I feel like the times I faded Kevin Holland, it's been pretty easy, man. I mean, the Khamzat Chimaev, Martin Vettori, Derek Brunson, all those fights were pretty binary. But, I mean, Ponzinibbio is a hell of a striker, man. I mean, regardless of how old Ponzinibbio will be, I think the only advantage that Kevin Holland has is really just youth and speed. But I think a big factor that isn't really played into the betting line is does Kevin Holland have a healthy hand? How much training did he do for this camp? I mean, he broke his hand against Stevie Wonderboy Thompson not that long ago. If you watched his podcast, a lot of his podcasts of recent has hands wrapped up. I have a question of how much work did Kevin Holland put into this camp? Is he taking Ponzinibbio for granted? I think Kevin Holland's going to try to push the pace. I think he's going to try to get this done inside a distance because I think Ponzinibbio, if you let him hang around for 15 minutes, ask Alex Morano how that went in the last fight. I definitely think there's line value on the dog here. This is one of the scenarios where in MMA, I'm starting to add this into the cap a little bit. We know the injury news. We know Kevin Holland's hand isn't 100% healthy. If he's not 100% healthy taking this fight, I got to blindly bet Ponzinibbio, man.
I think there's a pretty solid way to look and play this, and it sort of plays into the narrative of what you're saying. If it stays on the feet, and I mean, Ponzinibbio's takedown defense 60%, but if it does stay on the feet, Ponzinibbio's style, he pressures forward, he marches forward, he cuts through these dynamic style strikers like butter. If he can march forward and pressure and then get Holland to throw one punch, if that hand gets compromised at any point and he can't get it to the ground, if the hand gets compromised, you can't clasp to get a double leg. You can't, when you get your hands around, you're trying to grab both hands. It's going to be hard for him to do if his hand is compromised. But that being said, maybe in that scenario, Kevin Holland goes early for a takedown and a sub. That's also another angle and a way to look at this if there is a compromised situation. But I like the Ponzinibbio as a dog, as a simple play. I think that Nick and you are both sort of leaning that way, but I'll let Nick run his breakdown of what he saw as well, too.
Yeah, Ponzinibbio is one of the dogs when I looked at this card I was pretty heavily on. I just find with Kevin Holland, as you said, man, like golden rule of this podcast is you fade poor fight IQ. And with Kevin Holland, you know, he kind of has that like Nate Diaz approach where he likes to talk a lot during his fight. And like it's good and it's entertaining, but it's like it doesn't win you a fight, right? So if he's there shaking his hand off and stuff like that, like just talking shit, like it's not going to win. If you look at the Morono fight with Ponzinibbio, right? He got that TKO in the third going into that fight down 2 rounds, right? And throughout that whole fight, stayed to the game plan, kept landing his kicks, kept landing his punches, knew he'd find a shot. And he's just one of these guys, man, that, you know, win or lose, you can back. I think he'll probably be pretty heavy on the kicks just because of the Holland does have a relatively large reach advantage. I think his boxing is a little cleaner, and I think it's a little bit more technical. So I don't necessarily know if he finds a shot, but at plus 265, I don't think you really need to reach for props in this one if you're riding with the dog. So I think he's going to be able to outclass Holland. And as everybody's saying, man, that hand, there's no way it's 100%.
There's no way. Like, the way the human body works, there's no way that hand is 100%. It's just like, I'm kind of with what Colin was saying about Ponzinibbio retiring, but it's like he silenced the haters the last fight, man.
Yeah, and if you look at it, Ponzinibbio lands 5 strikes per minute, and Holland lands 4 strikes per minute. Holland sort of playing that outside game and trying to land what he can. Obviously a little bit defensive, more defensively sound on the feet, where Ponzinibbio sort of gets tagged a little bit more. He's absorbing about 4.65 strikes but does have a chin and can press through. So if the hand is compromised, I mean, you know what? You guys have sold me. Nick was already trying to sell me on this already as far as the dog. And you guys are both on the same side. And we are finding the dog of the week, Ponzinibbio. All right, next fight on the card, we have Raul Rosas Jr., 7-0-0, minus 225, 18-year-old, Betway favorite. We have Christian Rodriguez coming in 8-1-0, plus 190, bet 9-9, dog. I mean, Christian Rodriguez, his last time out, submitted Joshua Weems. Looked pretty good doing it, but Joshua Weems is not Rosas Jr. And while this kid sort of scares me in the fact that he's so young and so confident and is that good, there's going to be a point where he goes up against competition that's a step up. He's going to think he's going to dominate. I don't think it's going to happen. But right now, he's just going to likely run through Christian Rodriguez. The line's pretty decently wide, but I'm probably going to stay off this one just because this kid's still in a show-me situation for me. It's volatile. It's 18 years old, scares the shit out of me. When you have a hockey team or a basketball team that's young, emotions get in the way, and you can lose a game or lose a fight real quick. So young and inexperienced for me, I'm going to step back. I know he has the amateur experience and everything else, but what's your take on this one, Nick? Take it away.
Yeah, so this is another one of these fights, man. Like, putting value on a kid that's 18 years old, man, this is where I get a little bit dicey with it, right? Like, I definitely think he has the ability to come in here and beat Rodriguez. I feel like this is a tailor-made fight with Christian Rodriguez. He got taken down like 4 or 5 times in his first fight in the UFC. But, it's tough, man, because if this stays standing, it's like we're kind of talking about with Jorge Masvidal and Gilbert Burns. Like, if this stays on the feet, then Rosas Jr. is going to get pieced up. So I think there's one of these fights where we kind of just have to see how well Rosas is doing and where he's kind of at. As I said, man, 18-year-old kid, doesn't have a lot of experience. Like, UFC is kind of pushing him in a pretty heavy direction. So this isn't a fight that I really want to have much action on. I'll take Rosa as a side, but this is a no play for me.
Billy?
It's a weird fight. I mean, I know everybody shits on Rojas Jr. about being 18 years old, but I mean, if anything, I feel like for MMA, I feel like we're going to start seeing more 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids start coming up out of high school wrestling, because why would you go wrestle in college? For what? To go to school for 4 years? It's not like they're paying college wrestlers right now. I mean, maybe with the new NIL deal, maybe stuff will change. But, I mean, you start seeing it in the NBA. These kids are 19, 20 years old, absolutely hooping, putting up 25, 30 points. I feel like the MMA world is starting to adapt to the rest of these major sports leagues and how they're starting to run their business. But outside of narrative theory alone, I'm going to trust Sean Shelby and the guys here that they have a talent in Rojas Jr. While I know Christian Rodriguez isn't no run-through over, I mean, the kid's only 25 years old his damn self. I feel like that kid's pretty unexperienced. I mean, granted, he's looked good in the fights that we've seen him fight, but I feel like the level of competition isn't that far off from Rojas Jr. I mean, he's fought Joshua Weems. Jonathan Pierce would probably be the best fight by a wide margin. Everybody else, I'm not really too impressed about on his record. I feel like Jonathan Pierce throughout that fight was able to get takedowns. It shows that Rojas Jr. is able to get takedowns. It's going to be a quality win. It isn't going to be as easy as the Jay Perrin win was. Everybody thought there was line value on Jay Perrin, and Rojas Jr. made Jay Perrin look like he was not ready for the UFC, or if he was not UFC talent. And I think Rojas Jr., do I want to put him as my top of my parlay piece this week? I don't know, man, but I could definitely see my parlays this weekend ending out with Rojas Jr. on the pay-per-view. You see the UFC do this time and time again. They have Bo Nickel one pay-per-view with John Jones. He started off the pay-per-view. I feel like the UFC knows what they have in the talent of Rojas Jr. I'm not going to try to overthink it. My guy MMA Jewish better. I know he's going to the window down there in Lake Charles and betting the shit out of Christian Rodriguez. But I think Rojas Jr. is legit, man. I think he's going to win this fight by submission. That would be the prediction on this fight, would be Rojas Jr. inside a distance. And we're going to start seeing the highlight tape starting to come together.
Yeah, definitely a great breakdown. And I think it's, for us, it's not necessarily this matchup that you think is anything to worry about, but it's just, yeah, it does scare me, man. Just having someone so young, but you are right. The level of the kid is that great. But what I want to see is when he's extended on the feet for time, what that looks like. Once I can see that, I feel a lot more confident in everything. So hopefully we get to see that this fight. That would be great. We get it for free. He gets a win, extends for a little bit, even in the first round, stays on the feet for a bit.
I think the question of can Rojas Jr. take a clean punch to the face will be answered very early on in this fight.
Fair enough. And I mean, his ability to be able to scramble in those situations and keep his head about him is going to be the important thing, right? That'll be show the fight IQ and, the seasoned work that he's done even at a young age. So we shall find out, and we shall move forward, actually. Next fight on the card, and we will jump now. We have Kelvin Gastelum coming in 17-8-0 plus 115. Best bet can be had at Sports Interaction. Chris Curtis, 30 wins, 9 losses, and minus 111 best bet or best line to be had at Pro Line. So if we look at, this is actually one of the first early bets that I had placed. I was on the wrong side of the line early, so it's a bad placement because I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to be viewed. Minus 110. For Chris Curtis was the initial line that it's been going back and forth. You can get plus money this. But if we're looking at it, Kevin Gastelum has lost 5 of his last 6 fights. And yeah, I know it is at the highest level that he's lost these fights. But man, I just can't see how you can build momentum and build confidence to come into a win against a guy like Chris Curtis, who's going to work the body early, who sticks to the course, who sticks to the game plan, is willing to work that body and invest early and even take some shots and maybe that looks like great in the judges' eyes early. And then he goes to work. Once you start to gas, he starts to lay into you. And I just don't know if Gastelum goes to the wrestling. I mean, he's only really, I think he lands about one takedown recently per fight. So I just don't know. I think Curtis' takedown defense is already solid enough as it is. It stays on the feet. I'm with Chris Curtis in this one. I like the value on Chris Curtis in this one. I know a lot of people are sort of staying off this one with Gastelum as a question, but I'm going to go with Curtis. And I think who went first last time? Doesn't matter anyways. Billy, take it away.
Yeah, this is a weird fight, man. I mean, like, Chris Curtis is the betting darling, I feel like, in this fight, and nobody wants to bet Kevin Gastelum, but I think the line value here, actually, this line flipped. I thought Kevin Gastelum was the underdog. I think Kevin Gastelum wins this fight. Regardless of the line, I'm not going to let it skew how I cap the fight. I think Gastelum has more ways to win this fight than Chris Curtis. One big red flag for Chris Curtis, just off the eye test for me, is his volume of recent, man. Even in that Joaquin Buckley fight, before you got that knockout, it felt like you were screaming at the television, Curtis, throw more. You know you can beat this guy. And then it feels like some of that fight from the Jack Hermanson fight, I thought that fight was just a short notice fight for him, and he just looked a little bit hesitant. He flew halfway across the country short notice. Then he was in the Joaquin Buckley fight against a guy that he used to train with, so there's got to be some added confidence, and he doesn't really throw a lot of volume. Hey, we know Kevin Gastelum's going to go for it. He's going to throw a lot of volume. Kevin Gastelum knows, we know, the UFC knows he's lost 5 out of the last 6 fights. I think Kevin Gastelum's going to go for it, and I think Kevin Gastelum's going to surprise some people this week. I think his hand gets raised at the end of this fight. I like Chris Curtis when he's in Las Vegas or something like that, not over here in Miami. I think the Kevin Gastelum train, I think he gets the ball back rolling here. I don't think he'll be a legit contender in the division. I think this the tier that Chris Curtis can't overcome in this division. I think there's a talent difference between these two. I like Kevin Gastelum here. I don't know if I'm going to play the line, though, at minus 135. Landon talked Kevin Gastelum, but I feel like Vegas is telling you everything you need to know. We always say this in basketball when, like, the Spurs, you see the Spurs are only, like, +2. You're like, I mean, I guess Vegas is telling you everything you need to know. I can feel like Kevin Gastelum's a favorite for a reason. He's going to beat Chris Curtis over 15 minutes.
And I actually remember that even with Chris Curtis, I remember just sort of yelling at the screen, like, man, like, stop chasing him down, cut him off, find him. The one thing I will point out, though, with the strikes, based on, I think it's based on 5 fights we have. We look at Chris Curtis, 5.82 strikes landed per minute, Gastelum 3.53, and it is a matchup thing. And more recently, Curtis his volume has dropped off. So this is a little bit skewed if people are actually looking at the numbers. But the one thing that both of them do is they both get hit. There's no defense in striking. They're both willing to go in there and bang, and they're both willing to hit. Curtis basically is good to get hit more than he actually lands, and Gastelum's a little bit more defensively sound. So it should be
one more thing I want to add about Chris Curtis, man. Is he one of those type of fighters that falls into a scenario where it takes him so long to get to the UFC? They finally get to the UFC. He's on his second contract. He's fat. He's happy. He's got paid. His family's cool. His money's in the bank account. He's a smart guy. He invests. I don't think Chris Curtis is the same as that guy that came into the UFC from the regional scene that we saw in PFL. I don't think he's the same guy anymore.
Yeah, and for me, it's going to be a hard one to cut at the end. It could be a split decision. Still on the Curtis side of things, but we will lean to Nick. What's your take on this one? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely lean with Chris Curtis, but I can understand why people will go the other way on this one. For me, Chris Curtis is one of these guys that, like, he's like Josh Emmett to me. Like, he's one of these guys that has cashed so many tickets for me, even whenever people have counted him out, that, you know, I just can't not auto bet him. I think whenever it comes down to this fight, I think it's, as you guys both pointed out, both guys have been kind of low volume. So I think it's going to come down to the second or third round. I don't expect this to be an overly exciting fight. I think it's going to be relatively slow pace. If you want to get a little greasy with it, the split decision prop is plus 425 on DraftKings. If you want to get some decent plus money on how this is going to go. But I do have a bet on Chris Curtis at plus 110 after the line flipped, and one bet on Chris Curtis by decision at plus 230.
Yeah, I think I read that line.
Close.
I think I read that line wrong. I think Billy had corrected it. What's the line currently sitting at right now?
I got minus 135.
Yeah, on
But
DraftKings, I have minus 125 plus 105. So it's in that minus 125, minus 135 range for Gastelum.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I just flipped the lines around. Okay. Next fight on the card. We have Michelle Waterson-Gomez coming in 18-10-0, plus 145 dog, best bet at Coolbet. Luana Pinheiro 10-1-0, minus 163 favorites at Betway. I mean, really with Waterson comes in more of a striking style. She's been around for so long. Now we're really leaning on the wrestling. I was looking at a potential prop for a takedown. Probably not the most takedowns, though, because Pinheiro actually is landing about 4 takedowns per fight versus Waterson's 1. So this should be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of grappling along the cage in this fight. But for me, I don't know. I know you were sort of leaning a little bit with Waterson, Nick, but this likely could be a stay off for me, but I will potentially look at Waterson 1 takedown, depending on what that line is. So I think she could potentially get a takedown in this fight, and I think she'll be looking for it to get top position, because that's where I think she wins this fight if she does. What is your take on this one? Nick, take it away.
Yeah, I slightly lean Waterson in this fight. If you look at the people that Luana's been facing, it's super low level competition. And with Waterson, although she hasn't been winning the fights as of late, she's definitely been facing a high level of competition. I think stylistically, whenever she comes in, she has that kind of stand back karate stance. She's not somebody who chases finishes, nor is she somebody that puts herself in compromising positions. Luana likes to rush in. You know, she lands a lot of strikes, shoots for takedowns, but that can lead to a questionable gas tank. So I like Waterson to kind of piece her up in this fight, avoid the takedowns, maybe land one of her own, and ride this one out to a decision. But it's going to be close. So, like I was,
what do you think about maybe a Waterson live bet? Because, I mean, she's already dog money. Do you think Pinheiro comes out and looks real solid in the first round?
Yeah, man. After the first round, you may get a better line on Waterson, and Waterson can just take over. She's one of these fighters that's super aggressive in the first round.
Okay. Billy?
Yeah, Luana Pinheiro is one of my darlings, man. I found out about her on the Dana White Contender Series a couple years ago, and this girl absolutely fucking wrecks people, man. I've never seen anybody fight like this. She fights like a fucking dude. She fights better than her husband, Mateus Nicolau. She comes out here in the first round of the regional scene fights. Granted, these girls aren't that good, but she's just flatlining these people. Left hand, right hand, striking's good. The wrestling's good. She's really explosive. I think there's a huge athleticism difference between these two fighters, and I think Luana Pinheiro has the wrestling chops to be able to get Michelle Waterson to the ground. I mean, we saw Amanda Lemos go in there and made Michelle Waterson look real old. I mean, Michelle Waterson, granted, she's a known face in the company, but 18-10, not really that too high on her. She's only 6-6 in the UFC. She's batting 500. Luana Pinheiro is a darling of the UFC. They're trying to build up the hype train, and I'm on the hype train here. I mean, look, the inside the distance props for Luana Pinheiro this weekend are way too high. Luana Pinheiro is going to put people on notice that she's a legit contender in this division. Pinheiro to win by knockouts, plus 1,200. Pinheiro to win inside the distance, plus 350. Pinheiro to win by submission is plus 450. I mean, I endorse all those props. I know the odds makers think that this fight's going to go the distance. They have the over 2.5 minus 350. Fight goes the distance minus 275. But they don't know who Luana Pinheiro is. This girl is a legit player in this division. She's going to flatline Michelle Waterson. This is the right step up in competition, and I'm more than likely to have a straight play for her as more and more people start playing this Waterson line. And I think it will even go up even more. Even after weigh-ins, people are going to look at Luana Pinheiro and be like, how the fuck is this girl minus 170? It's women's MMA too. People blindly bet the dog. Luana Pinheiro, if this goes down to minus 160, minus 150, the lower it goes down, the higher my bet stake goes up on this fight. Luana Pinheiro is legit, man.
And the biggest stat to support everything you're saying, 4.76 takedowns per fight. That's huge. That's huge.
Okay, the only question mark would be the gas tank. I think Michelle Waterson does have a better gas tank, way more experience, and this is a huge step up in competition. But, I mean, do you think this is that far off from the Ronda Marcos fight? I mean, Ronda Marcos is absolutely trash, but she's a tough girl, and she's a gritty girl, and she's experienced.
What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a good comparison. That fight ended weird, though, right? Like, did that fight end in the first round with an illegal up kick? Yeah. So it's kind of hard to see how
I bring that fight up because I think that was a loss. And that could have been a loss for Pinheiro.
But yeah, no, the takedown definitely it's.
No, it was a win for her because Marcos was the one that upkicked her. But yeah, that fight ended straight.
No, man. I could see. That's why I was more like just on looking to see if there was value in a potential takedown where Waterson could potentially get a takedown on her in a scramble because she's been pushing the wrestling more and she's looking for it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I could see it going either way at times, depending if it goes longer. I think, I get why Billy's on this so heavy. And then looking at it live, I see where there's value. And actually, if it got extended live, it's a little bit of a gassy situation from an aggressive approach from Pinheiro. So we'll see. Next fight of the card, we have Gerald Meershaert, 35-15-0, plus 170 dog at Caesars. Joe Pyfer, 10-2-0, minus 189 at Coolbet. No mystery what this is. We have a guy who has power on the feet in Pyfer. Coming off the Dana White Contender Series, he's just been dominating people. He does have a strong grappling game and wrestling game as well, too. And everything is done with very powerful moves. Gerald Meershaert, he is the dog darling. He's the guy that stays in the fight long enough. His seasoned vet has been able to stay on the feet, do what he needs to do to try to get to the ground and run a late submission, which is pretty much an auto bet for almost anybody who watches his fights. It's that third round submission or that late finish. But I will let you take this one away, Billy. Does Pyfer just do this? Is this line warranted? I mean, I'm sort of leaning Pyfer on this one as well too. I don't think that Meershaert wins this one, but I don't know, man. I think the line's pretty well right.
Pre-warning for the podcast listeners: Joey Bodybag Pyfer is from my hometown area, man. He's from South Jersey, so there is a little bit of personal bias for him in my eyes. But let's talk about the things I don't like about Jerry Pyfer coming into this camp. Since I know this camp a little bit closely well out of Philadelphia, Sean Brady has a groin injury, and he's by far the best wrestler in that camp. While there is good people in that camp like Jeremiah Wells and then Sean Brady's cousin Patrick Brady, who's making his PFL debut in a couple of weeks. So he's getting good work in, but it's not that Sean Brady wrestling, man. And that's definitely something that is giving me like a red flag coming into this fight because we know what GM3 is going to do. GM3 is sub or bust, and GM3 has been subbing people and making a career living out of it. Most submissions in this weight class, and I believe he would be one more submission away from tying Nate Diaz for I think he's 5th on the list in the company for most submissions. So I could definitely see this fight playing out two ways. Joey Bodybags knocks this guy out pretty early as GM3 tries to go in for a takedown. Joey Bodybags is really good jiu-jitsu. I could see him knocking him out, or I could see GM3 getting a submission. You would think the under 2.5 would be the play in this one, but I mean, you know, the odds makers aren't going to let you make money on the under 2.5 in a GM3 fight. I mean, that's already minus 335. So we're probably going to see an over 1.5, and I feel like that's a little bit tricky because I feel like there's multiple paths to victory for Body Bags here. I think you can win a 3-round decision by putting more volume up and accruing more damage. The way these judges are scoring fights right now, they're scoring damage over the grappling. And Joey Body Bags has that type of fight style that really fits the judging criteria of recent. But I can also see this going to decision, but I can see Joey Body Bags knocking GM3 out. GM3 doesn't have the best chin ever. I mean, most famously, he comes at Jemai absolutely flatlined him in the first 15 seconds. So that's always a factor. I don't think GM3's chin is that good, but he's been cashing as a dog. I think I would want more plus money on GM3 if I'm betting GM3. I think if you're betting GM3, you would bet GM3 by submission here. That's plus 350 around the books. I mean, that's always going to be good odds, but value doesn't really pay the bills at the end of the day. The fighter that gets his hand raised does, and I think that's going to be Joey Bodybags Pyfer.
Agree. Nick?
Yeah, this is definitely, once again, like one of these little show me spots. And you can tell because if people were that confident in Pyfer, I think the money would be flying in. The fact that he stayed under minus 200 this whole time is a little shocking to me. I thought people would be just dumping piles on it. But if you look at GM3, right, in his last fight against Bruno, like Bruno's one of the hardest hitters in the division, and Bruno hit him with everything he had. And then GM3 was even able to rock him and then get the submission late in the third. The play I like on this fight is the over 1.5. It's sitting at plus 105. They're giving you a little bit of value there on it. I think Joe Pyfer is going to be smart enough not to come in and try and rush him. I think he knows the danger that's coming back his way. You can also take Joe Pyfer minus 105 by KO. I think he probably does get it in this fight, but I think it's one of these fights that gets extended and he gets it in the later part of the second, third round. I think he's going to want to show his true set of skills in this fight. He's a super talented guy, and I think he's obviously going to be somebody who's great for the division. But as I said, I definitely see this fight getting extended a little bit more than the odds makers seem to.
I like it, gentlemen. I like it. We got some sharp breakdowns tonight. I'm getting jealous. I want to jump in a little bit more with you guys. All right, so we got next fight on the card. Short notice. We have Carl Williams coming in minus 475. 8-1-0. Best bet at DraftKings. You may want to correct me if you can find a better line. Chase Sherman 16-11-0 plus 380 at DraftKings. Man, I mean, short notice coming in that big of a favorite. I can see why pretty much we have Sherman, whose takedown defense isn't really that solid, and we have Williams, who's going to shoot like at least 5 takedowns throughout the fight as well too. Really, I don't have too strong a plan. This I think Williams does walk through him in this one. I know it is short notice. I know he just fought recently, but yeah, I'm going to go with Williams as the pick. Is he a parlay piece?Maybe I'll let you guys sort of dig in with me and see if we can figure that out. But Williams over Sherman. Sherman's boxing solid. We'll be able to land a couple strikes early and probably have the volume a little bit early. But then when it comes down to it, he's going to start to fade as he gets gassy. His punches become less and less. And the takedowns are going to become more and more. If this gets extended, he'll probably get finished at the end of the fight on the ground, if not decision by Williams. Take it away, Billy. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, this is a pretty locky type of. I hate to use the word lock in sports betting, but I'm not making this mistake again. Carl Williams is by far the best parlay piece on this card. He's gonna absolutely. I think he could absolutely run through Chase Sherman. I mean, Chase Sherman got submitted by Jay Collier in round 1. And Carl Williams is out here wrestling a former Penn State wrestler that was supposed to be the shit on the Contender Series. I think Carl Williams is going to make this fight look easy. I mean, you're telling me him and Gilbert Burns is the same exact price tag? I mean, all lines are created equal, but I'd rather so fade Chase Sherman than fade Jorge Masvidal at the same exact price tag. I think Carl Williams is a great parlay piece, and let's get into the part where people make money. We all know that the minus 500 is the obvious parlay piece, but I think where you make money on this fight is Carl Williams by submission. By submissions plus 400. He's gotten, I believe, 1 career submission so far in his career, and these are one of those type of fights where you have to put context clues together. He's never gotten a submission so far in his career, but he's getting takedown after takedown in these fights. Who's to say he doesn't slap the rear naked choke on the worst damn near heavyweight in the division, Chase Sherman? If you told me that he got submitted in the first round, I would not be surprised. I think Carl Williams is a lot better than Jay Collier, and Jay Collier is able to get a round 1 rear naked choke. So that's the prediction for this one's Carl Williams round 1 submission, and Carl Williams plus 400 by submission is probably one of the best prop bets on the card this week.
Yeah, it's a solid play, man. I think that the play, it's going to take place on the ground where Carl Williams is going to be on top. It's going to be there most of the time. So submission is going to be there. I mean, when you're actually going to be, it's not going to be playing on the feet. He's going to be in dominant position. The neck's going to be there to be snatched up, and it's not a bad line at all. Nick?
Yeah, I kind of have to agree, man. Like, there really is no value in taking Chase Sherman. The fact that Chase Sherman was favored over Curtis blows my mind. But nonetheless, yeah, I think he gets this up too, man. I was looking at that prop a lot because, like, he's not going to waste his time at all in this fight. He's going to come in here, he's going to shoot a double leg, and this fight stays standing. He's making this fight closer than it needs to be. So, and Chase Sherman is notorious for having absolutely awful takedown defense. So I think Carl Williams comes in here, man. He's going to double leg his ass. He's going to be on the ground probably in the first minute. And like he does in most of his fights, he's going to curl up. And, you know, path of least resistance, man. If he puts his neck out there, why not take it, right?
My question for you, Nick, is are we getting too cute here by chasing the plus money at plus 450? Or is this going to be one of those type of fights where he ends up taking Chase Sherman down and, like you said, just top mount, ground and pound, and the inside the distance or the TKO prop hits? Because Carl Williams by TKO is plus 200. So the odds makers think is going to be a knockout from ground and pound. And if one of those two results happen, I wouldn't be too shocked.
No, for sure. Like, if you want, you can take the finish prop too. Like, I'm sure you probably get about plus 100 on it or something like that if you really want to go with it. But nah, man, this is where we make our money. This is where legends are born, right? This is where, you know, you get the plus 800 on the first round submission. You know, you put that shit all over MMA Twitter, and that's where everybody blows you up, right? So it's a greasy heavyweight fight.
I think that's where we quote picture this, man. The Carl Williams round 1 submission for the podcast, man. Because if that cashes through the ticket window, man, that's got to be a lot of plus money if the sub prop's already plus 450 alone.
I will chalk that up definitely at the end, and I'll make that like a highlight thing with you guys talking about the submission for sure.
So, and that's what you gotta do, man. You know, last week I cashed Daniel Pinheiro by submission. It was like plus 900 against Tucker Lutz. Everybody thought Tucker Lutz was gonna come in here and just ragdoll him, right? Nah, man. If you see something, regardless, you can never be blinded by it. If it's too good to be true, it probably ain't, man.
Okay, next fight on the card we have the one where I have pretty much a hot take on this one. We have not really a hot take, actually. I think everybody's on this one. Cynthia Calvillo, 9-5-1, plus 240 at B-Win. Lupita Godinez, 8-3-0, minus 263 at Cool Bets. I mean, anybody who ever gives up on the stool, I can never back ever. There's just not a case where that's ever going to happen. I don't care how good you look in your following fights. It's just, I just can't do it. I can't ever trust that situation ever. So if we have Calvillo coming in, the biggest thing that she's going to bring to the table is her grappling. And the takedowns really aren't, I don't know if they're going to be there, to be honest. She's cutting weight down, coming down to 115 again. And she's going up against Godinez, who I think a lot of people are sort of fading at this line at minus 263 because she did get caught by Angela Hill. But the one thing that I took out of that first round, and it's actually even Billy, your buddy there, Diehard, has sort of the same take on it. Lupi was throwing like some dynamite in that first round. And she was landing. She was believing in her striking. The only problem was she couldn't get a savvy vet, a savvy striker, and Angela Hill out of there. And what ended up happening is she gassed. And I don't think that Calvillo is even close to the striking that Hill is. I think we all know that. And I think that Lupi's going to go in there and she's going to land some early shots, feel her striking, and she's going to get Calvillo out of there early. I think this fight ends, whatever way you want to look at it to be safe, whether its fight doesn't go the distance or under or whatever line value that you see. I think Lupi gets the actual KO in this one. I think Lupi by KO is right now. What's the line currently sitting at?
Plus 900.
Plus 900. I think either way, you can make Lupi a parlay piece, in my opinion, on this. And I know that, Billy, you had mentioned those minus 263 parlay pieces. So those ones are a little bit scary because it could go either way. But I think that Calvillo is showing us that she pretty much can't really hang when it comes down to it. When she's pushed back on her back foot and she's pressed and mentally she just seems to break. And I think that Lupi is just a monster in there. And I know that she's had points where, against Luana Carolina, where she couldn't really, coming in at short notice, going up a weight class, couldn't get the longer fighter down. And it is what it is. She's trying for a single leg, didn't really work up against the cage. But Lupi is the real deal. Mexican-Canadian national wrestler. And we all know that you might want to fade me when it comes to Luke because I'm a little bit of a simp for her. But I'm more a simp for her style. I'm a simp for the fact that she was going to take those fights on short notice. She's a monster. Long diatribe, long-winded. Lupi Godinez is one of my plays of the week. I think she goes in the parlay unless you guys want to talk me off it. And I like her by K.
Lupi, I have to agree on this one, man. It's kind of a tough spot for me because that Angela Hill fight was such a letdown where, I can see everybody sitting there with their tickets, thinking this is going to cash. And that was just that one parlay ticket that didn't hit, man. It was almost as bad as Valentina whenever she screwed all of our tickets there, too. It was just one of these fights that just seemed so easy that it just did not go our way or her way. With Cynthia, man, this is her first fight down at 115, I think, since 2018 or something like that. So I think the weight cut's a big thing to look at as well. I think that plays into your narrative that this fight could get finished too, because she's notoriously had issues making this weight, which is why I believe she moved up in the past. And if she struggles to make that weight, man, that KO's even more alive than it was before. So I like Lupi. I like her volume. And I like that plus money, man, because at the price tag that she's at, there's no way I could bet it after her last performance.
Billy?
I don't think I can give that Luke Godinez after her last performance, man. I know we tried not to bring recency bias into play, but I cannot guarantee that Lupi Godinez is gonna go out there for 15 minutes and go shoot for takedowns, man. Cynthia Calvillo changed camps for this fight. She finally left Team Alpha Male and she went over there to Syndicate MMA down there in Las Vegas. And I honestly think right now that Syndicate MMA is damn near, besides the other Florida gyms, are probably the nucleus of where all the MMA talent's really coming out right now is out there in Vegas. I mean, maybe that shows signs that she gives a fuck about her career. She's changing camps, got out of her comfort zone, and she's getting good training and good work. Do I think that work is good enough for me to go to the betting window and bet Lupi Godinez? I mean, the bet against Lupi Godinez? I don't know, man. Cynthia Calvillo only by decision plus 350. I hate to sound like the guy, but I mean, I would want more plus money on it, man. And I want to bet the split decision. It's a stay away fight for me. I don't know if I'm getting too deep into it by not just parlaying Lupi Godinez at minus 300. We talked about Carl Williams earlier. It could be just a Lupi Godinez, Carl Williams parlay for the weekend. But I'm going to go a different route here, though. I just don't think Lupi Godinez is somebody I can trust on my parlay tickets. I like to know that somebody's going to fight for my money, and Lupe Godinez fights for your paychecks, not for your money.
And I can respect the idea that after that last fight, going up against someone like Angela Hill, when she's a dog, you bet Angela Hill, right? She stays in fights. She's going to bang. She throws volume. She wins split decisions. And I think that once Lupe got in there and she started to land, she got confident in that first round. I actually went back and watched that first round quite a bit. I watched it over and over again to see if I'm trying to find something for the girl that I'm a big fan of, you know what I mean? Because I'm a fan of her. But I just think that she fell in love with her boxing. Leading into that fight, if you followed her on Instagram, she was doing a lot of boxing. I think that she started to land, and she felt like she could actually get her out of there. And Angela Hill's got like a head like a brick. So it was poor fight IQ. With the ROI I've gotten on Lupe, I'm willing to go to the window one more time with her, and to give her the benefit of the doubt on the actual fight IQ on this one. We'll see if we can get her into a parlay, but we all got to agree that is the rule. So next fight on the card, we have Trey Ogden plus 285, 16-5-0 on DraftKings versus Ignacio Bahamondes, 13-4-0, minus 345 on DraftKings. And if you ever hear me just give lines on DraftKings, it's usually because I couldn't quickly find the lines anywhere else. So if you guys see something else, you let me know when you talk. Trey Ogden coming in, grappler. He was supposed to fight, on the last card, and they just put this fight together. He won his last fight against Daniel Zellhuber by decision. He was actually a plus 310 dog in that fight, right? And I get that Bahamondes is not Daniel Zellhuber, but he does present some similar situations on the feet. And on the ground, I mean, Bahamondes is more of an opportunistic grappler in that situation. He's known as just a striker, but he does have some submissions as well, too. But for me, I'm on the Bahamondes side of this, but the line is once again way too wide. And I don't hate anybody for going up against somebody who's proven that he's a dog and been able to fight for your money in the past. So, I'll let you take it away, Nick, or actually I'll let you take it away, Billy. You lead off this one. Trey Ogden, 16-5-0 plus 285 dog. Does he do it? Or does Ignacio continue his move up the rankings?
I feel like there's always line value on Trey Ogden after that Jordan Levitt performance. But I actually think Jordan Levitt is actually somewhat good. I mean, he came back in that Daniel Zellhuber fight, and he cost me a lot in my parlay tickets that week. And I was probably more than likely going to bet Trey Ogden against Manuel Torres, but that isn't the fight that we're breaking down. We're breaking down Ignacio Bahamondes, and I don't like this stylistic matchup for Trey Ogden here. I really have a hard time seeing how Trey Ogden wins this fight. A lot of the reasons why I liked him against Manuel Torres is because I thought he had a better gas tank over 15 minutes. But I feel like Bahamondes is a good gas tank. I mean, he trains with Bilal Muhammad. I mean, if you train with Bilal Muhammad for a living, I mean, your gas tank's got to be good, man. And he's learning day in and day out. One of those type of guys that I would say came into the UFC a little bit green, but athletically gifted, 6'3", 75-inch reach, 25 years old. I think we're going to see him get better and better each fight. And I actually just don't think Trey Ogden's that good. I think he's an experienced veteran in the sport, and he'll win a couple fights if you match him up with the right matchmaking. But this is bad matchmaking here. I feel like Bahamondes is going to win this fight. Am I going to the betting window to go place this one? I don't think so. Looking at the inherent line right now, I just don't think Bahamondes at minus 350 is parlayable, to be honest with you.
No, and even with what you're saying with Ogden sort of sitting there as that dog that's done it before, it's just one of those things that's just, if it sits in the back of your mind, it's not a parlay piece, man. Most definitely. Nick?
Yeah, for sure. Trey Ogden's the type of guy that's always live in his fights. He's got good boxing, man, and he's got very good grappling as well. I definitely think Bahamondes wins this fight. His striking is something that's next level, especially Trey Ogden. He's coming this fight short notice. I agree. Like, I don't understand where he can really win this fight. I think he probably gets pieced up everywhere. And then even then, trying to find a prop play, right? It's like, is he able to finish this fight? It's short notice. You want to lean that direction. But Bahamondes is this type of guy that doesn't necessarily chase finishes either. He had that crazy spinning kick over Roosevelt Roberts. That was, almost a highlight, or one of the highlight, maybe even the best KO of last year. But that's only whenever these opportunities present themselves. So I agree, like Bahamondes, but the money line's kind of it's a little wide. You can't do much with that.
far too wide. And
No.
if we are going to look at a parlay piece, I would feel more confident in my darling and Lupita versus Ignacio. So
I
next
got a
fight on
little
the
bit
card.
of a sticker shock when I saw that price tag come out. It's been like within the last 24 hours that the books have opened up the price tag. It was like Bahamondes minus 350. Man, I don't know, man. That just seems like that just said he wins the first round, and I definitely think he wins the first and the third. So if I think a fighter wins the first and the third, I guess I got to bet him, right?
That's fair.
Fair
If
enough.
Trey Ogden lands one takedown in the first round, I'll probably throw something just as like a live bet. Like if he just shows that he can potentially get a takedown at that price tag, might throw a little something on it, but we'll see.
The way this podcast is going right now, man, I feel like we got a couple of dogs barking, man. We're not going for the plus 125s. I feel like all the dogs that we talked about in this card have been all plus money, like big plus money.
It's the way
Yeah,
to do
there's
it.
couple spots, man, for sure. I like this. This is what I love. When you get more minds together, you find cleaner and better spots. Everybody cleans out all the bullshit that you have in your own head about picks that you have, and you find the best ones. So next fight on the card, we have Shailan Nuerdanbieke coming in against Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia 13-5-0 plus 185 dog best bet at Cool Bets. And Nuerdanbieke coming in at minus 200 best bet at Pinnacle. And we know what this fight is. This Nuerdanbieke, his last time he fought, he became a very huge favorite just before fight time and possibly one of the biggest scandals in mixed martial arts. And Mr. James Krause, what a fall from grace that guy was. But we don't need to talk about that too much. Let's talk about the matchup. We got Garcia coming in. This is going to be a banger. I'm interested to see exactly if Nuerdanbieke can actually land that big shot on Garcia. Garcia, dog, always in the fight, scrappy, a little bit higher volume. What's your take on this one, Nick? Take it away.
I think this line is crazy wide, man. I like Shailan Nuerdanbieke, definitely a good fighter, but we all saw what Steve Garcia did to Chase, what's his name? Chase Hooper there. Was it Chase Hooper?
It was Hooper.
Yeah. Where he just came in there, man, big underdog, and just pieced him up. Destroyed people's tickets left and right. Probably like the third fight on the card. Just, parlays went out the window right away. If this fight stays standing, he's definitely going to win this fight, in my opinion. He throws a lot more volume. Shailan, he's a good fighter, man. He's very slow, very methodical in what he throws, and volume isn't something he's big on. Where Steve Garcia is the complete opposite. Not very technical, throws kind of wild shots, but throws with power, throws with heat, and gets directly in your face. So I think this is one of these fights that I would not parlay it. I like it from a live betting perspective because you're going to find out real quickly within the first couple of minutes of this fight how this fight's going to play out. If Shailan's able to land a big shot, push him up against the cage, work towards a takedown, that's how I see that fight progressing as it goes. If Steve Garcia pushes him away from the cage and just starts landing big shots and just starts voluming him, then, I see this turning in Steve Garcia's favor. So
I think the only caveat to the Garcia Hooper win was Hooper just can't take a punch. Although Garcia does have it in the hands, Hooper turns away as soon as he takes a shot. If you can't get to the ground and get on your back, that kid cannot take a punch.
It's true,
but it is what it is. Billy, what's your take?
I'd probably stay off the side for this one. I think Nick hit the nail on the coffin. I feel like Shailan at minus 220 is a little bit too wide of a price tag, but this might be the most square play on the card for me. But I like the under 2.5 minus 150 for this fight here. I definitely think this is how the early prelims are going to start off with. I think this could be the first inside a distance fight. I see a lot of violence potentially in this fight. Feels like Steve Garcia is like, I'm going to go get a finish or I'm going to go die out trying. And that's pretty much so far how his UFC career has been. And the reason why I say this feels like a square play is because Meershaert came out here and absolutely flatlined Steve Garcia. Feels like UFC was kind of in the back room thinking, who can we give Shailan here an easy win? And they're like, Steve Garcia is up for a contract. Let's go cut this guy. Shailan, I think, has the ability to be able to knock Steve Garcia out pretty easy. I mean, he made it look pretty easy against Derek Minner. Granted, there was some controversy behind that fight, so I don't know how much stock I could put in that finish, but maybe we just bet the rig again under 2.5, and it cashes through the window again because I definitely think Steve Garcia has the capability of beating Shylan here. I mean, Shylan's also the same as that guy that got knocked out in round 1 by Zhu Rong. So I could definitely see violence here in this fight. Minus 50 for the under 2.5, but the over 1.5 is minus 160. So the odds makers are trying to make some money off of this fight some way, somehow in the prop section. But hopefully I can outsmart him here and bet the under.
Yeah, I don't mind that under. Don't mind that at all. What do you think about that play, Nick?
Yeah, honestly, I think it hits because, as he said, man, like Steve Garcia, he throws bombs, but he also gets hit with them. He's just one of these fighters, man. His kill or be killed. So, and Nuerdanbieke, if you let him land his shots, he throws with heat too. So I like balance, man. I agree.
Yeah, if you look at Steve Garcia, I mean, he's going to get hit a little bit. He does land about 5 strikes per minute, and he's absorbing about 3 strikes per minute. So we shall see. Last fight we'll talk about, we have the first fight of the night. We have Sam Hughes, 7-5-0. Or what am I doing here? Sorry, guys, 1 second.
I think that is the right fight. Sam Hughes versus.
Yeah, I'm just. Yeah, okay, I did. I thought I got the record wrong there for a minute. I just wrote things down wrong. Okay, next fight of the card and last fight to talk about. We have Sam Hughes, 7-5-0, plus 215, best bet at Coolbet. Jacqueline Amorim making her UFC debut, 6-0-0, best bets, minus 245 favorites at DraftKings. And when we have a minus 245 favorites coming in on a show me spot in a debut, it's a little bit hard. But really, we have Jacqueline Amorim, who's just mowed through her competition. Her last fight actually beating local, regional, and kickboxing champion Ashley Nickel. But, I mean, Jacqueline Amorim, it's no mystery what she's going to try to do. She's very aggressive with every movement. Every movement's explosive, whether it's a strike, a takedown, a press up against the cage. Everything is very aggressive. Her submission attempts are aggressive. She looks to get you out of there early. And I got to be honest, man, I think that one or two things happens in this fight. I think that Jacqueline Amorim gets in there early and she works Sam Hughes, gets her down and actually finishes her in this fight. Or she overexerts herself and doesn't realize the level. And Sam Hughes actually exposes it and catches her because she blows her load and gasses herself going into the second and third round. I think, honestly, man, although she is favored, I think Amorim finishes Hughes in this fight. And the sort of backdoor play on this one is Hughes live if Amorim just goes all in the first round, which she will do. So I think that Amorim gets her done inside the distance. I think this fight doesn't go the distance. I know I'm sort of on an island with this one, it being a show me spot, it being women's MMA, it being the first fight of the night. Not necessarily going to make it a podcast play, but it is something that I'm leaning towards as far as going to the window with. Fight doesn't go the distance. What's that currently sitting at right now?
I don't see a props out for this fight specifically.
Okay. It's all right. We can, when it goes
I
out.
have under 2.5 minus 110.
Yeah, okay. So they're sort of seeing it too, and it's looking at what Amorim has done in the past. But what's your guys' take on this one? I just watched a lot of tape on Amorim when she had fought Ashley Nichols, so I was pretty in tune with her already. I think she honestly wins this one inside the distance. But what's your take on this one, Nick?
Yeah, like I definitely agree, man. Like she's definitely she's first round. That's what worries me, right? If you look through her Tapology record and you look through her regional scene record, she's very like quick to go, gets the fight to the ground, gets the submission. But to me, it's just what does it look like if this fight gets extended? Because Sam Hughes is one of these girls that's notorious for coming in plus money and absolutely killing your tickets. So I like what you say, man. I think she probably gets this fight done. Probably gets it done by sub a little bit later. But, you know, if you see her gassing at all, man, I would jump on Sam Hughes live. But it's a tough fight, man. Like,
this is the first time the UFC has been in Miami for a very long time. Hence why we see all these big name fighters. And there's only one debutante on this card. And it's this girl, Jacqueline, for a reason. This girl's the real fucking deal. This is the only reason why I didn't like Lupi Godinez. I don't think all three favorites win, but I think this girl is very talented, man. It's very hard to tell how good her gas tank is, but still those young Brazilians, man, they just keep on getting better and better and better in the UFC. I think the UFC knows what they have in their pocket here. American top team. She's going to feel comfortable at home. This isn't going to be too bright of lights for her. I like this girl, Jacqueline, in the parlays. I'm not going to put her up at the top because she's a debutante, but I think the fact that there's one person on the card out of all of these fights, 12 to 13 fights, there's only one debutante, and the girl's a minus 245 over the 7-5 girl, Sam Hughes, who I think is a gritty fighter, but she's definitely been beat by lesser competition before. This girl's legit. I mean, LFA is the feeder league straight to the UFC. She was the LFA strawweight champion. LFA doesn't give easy them and Invicta, they don't give easy fights to these girls. They give them legit matchmaking. They get them prepared for the UFC. I think this girl's prepared for the UFC. This isn't too soon. She's going to make this fight look easy. If she got this done inside a distance, would I be surprised? No. But I think Sam Hughes could be tough enough to survive the 15 minutes and just be a, 2018 every round. Like, I could see this just being just a 10-8 every round. And we just all walk away with the parlay tickets cashing here. This is a great weekend for parlays, and she will definitely be the fourth to fifth leg on my parlays this weekend. I would say if I had to give you an idea of like where I'm thinking about the lead into the next topic for parlays, Carl Williams and Rojas Jr. minus 148 as a two-leg banger just to get you started off, and then just go from there. What do you guys think about that?
Me, bro, that's the one thing I know. You know what? I'm gonna feel stupid because it's gonna probably hit real simple, and when it hits, if I don't make it a play, it's gonna just feel. It's one of those plays where you're just like, yeah, of course he did, it. You know what I mean? And I'm overthinking it. That potentially is a play. I think if we could find maybe either two-piece parlays or a three-piece parlay, I think that's the way to do it. But a two-piece is always nice. I sort of like that one. Nick, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, man, that seems like a perfect parlay. Like, and you're not diving too deep into it because whenever you get big cards like this, right, you know what? There's somebody that's gonna screw it. So you don't want to put too much stock. You start putting 3-4 legs, and then it's where you really end up, right? You pick the spots you like. Minus 141. You're getting pretty much you're not quite even money, but you know what I mean. But you're not paying super chalk on anything like that. So I like it, man. I think
so. Let's do this as we go down through the full list. We'll put them both in the parlay pool right now, and if anything else presents itself, it does. If it doesn't, then that will be the play.
I think that could be the move, though. Column is have Carl Williams as your top little leg, and then if you like Lupe Godinez more than anybody else on the card, then you put her as the second leg because it's probably the same exact price tag. No matter if you switch out these fighters of Rojas Jr., Lupe Godinez, Gilbert Burns, like I feel like those would be the 3 two-leg parlays that are going to really hit, and then you go from there because I feel like Nick hit the nail right in the coffin. I feel like the over 2.5 in the Rob Font Adrian Yanez fight is pretty lock worthy. And then if you want to put the over 1.5 maybe in the parlay with Carl Williams, I know a couple of people do that all the time. Put the over 1.5 in the most confident fight that you think is going to go to distance and tie it in with your favorite money line. It's a strategy that I used to use a little bit, but I gotten away from, but I need to go back to. So I stopped playing stupid ass people like Tucker Lutz.
Over under sometimes have been burning us. That was something that we would implore, like an over under that we're really, really adamant about, or that this is the one that's going to hit. But we've been trying to stay away from over unders in the main event. Now, that's potentially one of our plays. The fight doesn't start round 5. I think Billy was a really sharp play on your end. It's the plus 103 there. Fight doesn't start round 5 in the main event. I think is a great spot too. The Rob Font Adrian Yanez over 2.5 is a play. And then if we look, Santiago Ponzinibbio plus 220 is our dog. I think that's definitely something that we look at. And let's look at.
I'll stick for that one then. For the Ponzinibbio play, because I was coming in a little bit hesitant about the Ponzinibbio play, and then Nick kind of really confirmed the nail in the coffin. Yeah, we're fake.
And stylistically, it makes sense. I think that for the value and the money, I think it definitely lines up solidly. So I think, so let's do a two-piece. So we got Rojas Jr. and you said Carl Williams as a play?
Yeah, I think that's going to be my 2-leg parlay this weekend, man. As long as everything grades out.
Let's build one more. Maybe it won't be as confident as a parlay as that one. But let's do Lupe Godinez, and let's pair her up with somebody as a second-tier parlay. Maybe I'm really confident in Joe Pyfer. I get what Gerald Meershaert could present, but I think if you're hedging with him by
I think if you're parlaying that fight, you got to parlay no distance over Joey body bags.
yeah, I know you don't want to go against Meershaert. I get it. I understand. As far as just a case. So what do you guys think? What would be the second piece to Lupi Godinez?
If you do fight doesn't go in the Gerald Meershaert fight, that's probably value right there, man.
Okay.
I think that's the parlay, bro. Carl Williams, no distance, GM3, Joey body bags, and Lupi Godinez as the third leg. I think that catches through the window.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Because I know we're going back and forth on a whole bunch of stuff. What I'm going to do is I'll open up a chat either in probably in Instagram, and then we'll just reconfirm all the plays before I put them all out. But I think that we locked some spots in, man. I think that we did service to each other in finding certain spots, and I'm glad that we didn't agree on everything. That's how you find the best shit. So definitely like the over 2.5. I think that's definitely possibly going to be the podcast play of the week.
Before we get on out of here, I got a quick question for you guys. Who do you guys think is going to be the what's going to be the fight of the night and the performer of the night on this pay-per-view event? A lot of Easter Sundays are going to be relying on this UFC card, man. And you know Alex Pereira's Muslim, man. Hey, it's Jesus Christ's day. They're going to be fighting on Easter on the day that Jesus is rising, man. I mean, it doesn't sound too well for the Muslim here.
I mean, I think, oh, man, it's hard. I think the Yanez fight is obviously the front runner for fight of the night as far as what people are looking at. But I think Holland and Ponzinibbio could steal it. I think Masvidal and Burn, there's potential there for trying to see what would extend a little bit longer that they would call fight of the night, not performance. That's a tough one, man. Meershaert could end up being a guy that sticks it in with Pyfer. Pyfer beats the shit out of him. He sticks it in. They call it a fight of the night because it ends in some crazy fashion.
Somebody's getting $50K bonus in that fight.
For sure. Yeah, this is a hard card to really make those calls, but there probably is a lot more value because of that. What do you think, Nick?
I'm going to take a long shot and say Steve Garcia versus Shylon gets fight of the night. Shylon comes out and just throws bombs, and Garcia just goes crazy because that's what Garcia does. I think we get a solid 2 rounds and then give him fight of the night.
This man's digging in the well. Okay.
Can't pick the obvious ones, you know. It's no fun if you just pick the obvious one.
I'm going to go hot take, man. Fight of the night, Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. We're all going to be sitting in our chairs thinking that Rob Font, Adrian Yanez is going to be the striker's delight, but it's really going to be Kevin Holland versus Ponzinibbio. We know Holland doesn't want to wrestle out there. His hand's already messed up. I think these boys are going to throw down, and it's going to be whoever can stand after 15 minutes, and I think that's going to be the fight of the night.
We should get a prop bet for how often he points at his hand and says, "My hand hurts," and goes like this.
Starts pointing at his hand. I think the better prop bet is what hairstyle Kevin Holland's going to come out with last time. I have never seen anybody in professional sports history come out with half cornrows and half afro and NBA YoungBoy as their walkout song. I mean, that was pretty thug of Kevin Holland last time.
Yeah, that man, what was he getting? He was on a podcast and he was holding a whale, a stuffed whale. I didn't even actually watch the podcast. This man, he beats to his own drum. That's for sure. No apologies, man. No apologies. I love it. But yeah, I could see that definitely. But I think performance of the night could fall almost anywhere as far as what would a finish be. I mean, if Rosas Jr. comes in and pulls off a crazy submission, they could possibly throw it to him as 18-year-old, feed his confidence, boost the kid more, because they would do that to get his name out there more as far as performance of the night that way. But I don't know, man. It's a tough one. I think you're on with the fight of the night, but performance of the night could go anywhere. What do you think, Nick? Performance of the night?
Once again, I'm gonna dive deep on this one. I think performance of the night goes to Jacqueline. I think that she comes out and does what we expect her to do, gets Sam Hughes down, gets that submission quick and early, and I think the UFC rewards her for it.
Okay. I think Nick could be right, man. Dana always loves giving those girls $50K when they get that UFC debut win, especially if it's inside a distance. Nick, I might have to go to the window with that one. I don't think anybody's going to the ticket window thinking Queen's going to be performance of the night.
I'll tell you, make money, man. You got to think sharp.
We got a couple of left field, or not left field, but like bigger prop plays. But I think that potentially could be, what is it, plus 400 you said? I think that potentially could be one of our bigger plus money plays of the night. So definitely some sharp ass spots. And it actually, honestly, Billy, it is exactly what I hoped for. Because I could have just sort of interviewed you live on IG and could have chopped it up a little bit, but I really wanted to get you and Nick and cross-section this fight card and have you guys really break this down the way you just did. I think we found some sharp-ass spots. We will obviously potentially adjust them as the week goes on, but I will try to get this out. It should be up. Well, it will be up 100%, and obviously I'll delete this part. Wednesday, it'll be up tomorrow at 3 p.m. So from here, Billy, we already know where we can, or at least people who are in this realm and in this space do know where we can find you. But where can we find Billy Briz?
Yeah, you can follow me over on Instagram at Billy Briz DFS, over on Twitter at Getting Bills, and all my content's done over there at Pub Sports Radio. We always put out free content for all the sports under the sun. So, we're grinding 365 days a year, and we're just trying to get to a bag this weekend, man. Easter Sunday's coming around. Families are going to be sitting around the dinner table, and we're going to be true degenerates betting into the midnight of the night before on MMA cards. But I wouldn't want to have it any other way. My mom asked me what am I having for Easter? What does she want me to get? I told her, Mom, I'm not coming home. We're staying up here at the sports book. I got a bag to make this weekend. Israel Adesanya, hashtag ain't new.
All right. I like it. Okay, man. So for Billy Briz, for Nick Eagle-Eye, I'm Callum McGregor. We like to line your pockets while lining ours. We like to break down tape and enjoy the hell out of it while doing it. Once again, Rafi and Stotts, what do we do up here in Canada?
Tune into this fight because I'm about to beat the shit at this kid, bro. I'm Rafi Stotts, Bellator champion, and tune into the Don't Tap podcast.